If you've ever had rats, you know how it works. You set traps and catch one, but the colony keeps growing because the trap kills the one you can see. There's a $7 powder that works differently. The rat eats it on its own, carries it back to the nest, and the colony dies from the inside. No traps, no exterminator, no $340 bill. And that's not the only method. I'll show you 2 more powders and 1 bonus that the $9 billion industry doesn't want you to know about. All cheaper than a pizza, all available at Walmart right now. Boric acid is a mineral. It forms naturally near volcanic lakes and hot springs. But what happens inside a rat after it eats this powder is a specific, very concrete story. Boric acid is absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract and distributes evenly throughout the body. It accumulates in the kidneys and suppresses the activity of ATP-dependent enzymes, the ones responsible for producing cellular energy. Mitochondrial function is disrupted in parallel. At doses above a certain threshold, the kidneys can no longer cope with elimination, and the rat dies of renal failure within a few days. According to EPA data, the lethal dose of boric acid for rats is between 2,660 and 5,140 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. All of this happens because the cells simply stop producing energy. In 1986, the U.S. National Toxicology Program, NTP, a division of the Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, conducted a series of toxicity studies on boric acid in rodents. The results were published in scientific journals, and the data formed the basis of an official EPA fact sheet. Boric acid had been used as an insecticide and rodenticide for decades. California farmers knew about it as far back as the 1890s. It worked. Then synthetic anticoagulants arrived, warfarin in 1948, and when rats developed resistance to it, brodifacoum followed in the 1970s. A natural mineral powder, on the other hand, can't be patented. There's no commercial incentive to promote it. The U.S. rodenticide market is worth $1.3 billion a year in retail alone. The average American family with a chronic rodent problem spends between $200 and $480 per year on pest control. Southern Ag boric acid powder, 12 ounces, Walmart, $7. Enough for several months of active use. The math is simple, $7 versus $480. It was erased by market logic. No margin, no marketing. The EPA published an official boric acid fact sheet through the National Pesticide Information Center at Oregon State University. It confirms the oral LD50 for rats is between 2,660 and 5,140 milligrams per kilogram, making boric acid significantly less toxic to humans and pets than most commercial rodenticides. But I want to be honest about the limitations. Boric acid is slow. It takes several days, not one night. It won't work if rats have access to other food sources and simply ignore the bait. It is toxic to pets and children on direct contact or ingestion, so placement needs to be thoughtful. To make the bait, I used boric acid, 12 ounces, $7, Walmart, peanut butter, cornmeal. I mixed 1 cup of cornmeal, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, and 1 tablespoon of boric acid, a ratio at which the bait's smell masks the smell of the powder. I shaped them into grape-sized balls, and that evening placed them along the baseboards, behind the refrigerator, under the sink. Everywhere I'd seen signs of activity, always flush against the wall. Rats travel along surfaces. It's their physiology. Within a few days, the balls were eaten, and new signs of activity had disappeared by the end of the week. I refreshed the bait every 7 days for a month, then switch to prevention every 30 days. Diatomaceous earth is the fossilized remains of microscopic algae that lived 30 to 50 million years ago on the beds of freshwater lakes. Under a microscope, each particle looks like glass with sharp edges. Against rats, it works in a particular way because fur and skin protect them from direct desiccation. But here's what happens. A rat walks through a layer of diatomaceous earth. Particles cling to its paws and belly. The rat grooms itself and swallows the powder. The microparticles irritate the mucous membranes of the digestive tract and absorb moisture. This doesn't kill quickly, but it creates persistent discomfort, and, most importantly, rats begin avoiding treated areas. A Science Direct study confirms, at 5% diatomaceous earth in the diet over 90 days, no mechanical or chemical tissue damage was observed in rats. Safe for humans and animals. Unpleasant enough for rats that they leave. In the 1950s, USDA researchers documented the use of diatomaceous earth in grain storage facilities as an alternative to chemical insecticides. Farmers in Iowa and Kansas knew about it. It left no chemical residues in grain and didn't kill beneficial birds. It worked. Then, new synthetic insecticides arrived with patents. Research into diatomaceous earth continued but received no significant commercial funding. Today, Harris, a company that has sold this product since 1928, offers it at Walmart for $5.96 for 9 ounces. Nearly 100 years on the market, and most people have never heard of it. Professional rodent treatment on a monthly service plan typically costs $50 to $150 per month, meaning $600 to $1,800 a year for a single property. By comparison, Harris Diatomaceous Earth Crawling Insect Killer, 9 ounces, costs around $5.96 at Walmart and remains effective indefinitely, as long as it stays dry. A product that can serve for years, needs infrequent reapplication, and doesn't drive repeat purchases fits poorly into a subscription business model. The EPA registered diatomaceous earth as an insecticide in 1960. University of Kentucky research confirms its effectiveness against crawling insects. But I'll say it plainly, diatomaceous earth against rats is a barrier and a repellent, not a poison. It will not kill a rat overnight. Rats are larger than insects. Their fur protects their skin, so there's no lethal desiccation effect as there is with insects. The method works best as a discomfort zone along rodent travel routes and as a complement to boric acid rather than a replacement for it. One caveat: at humidity above 70% or after getting wet, the powder clumps and loses all effectiveness, so it needs to be reapplied. Given that, application itself is simple and cheap. I used a bag of Harris food-grade diatomaceous earth, 9 ounces, $5.96, Walmart, and an ordinary paintbrush. Important: food grade only, not industrial. Industrial contains crystalline silica, which is hazardous to the lungs when inhaled. I apply a thin, even layer, literally like dusting powder, not piling it up, along baseboards, behind appliances, around pipes entering the wall, in the narrow corridors between furniture and the wall. Rats travel these routes every night. I apply it in the evening, 15 minutes for the kitchen, the same for the basement. I refresh it every 30 days or after any surface gets wet. Total annual cost, around $35. A monthly Exterminator subscription in my area costs $89. Rats don't merely dislike hot pepper. Their olfactory system contains the TRPV1 receptor, the same one that in humans registers pain from heat and spicy food. In rats, this receptor is extraordinarily sensitive to capsaicin, the active compound in cayenne pepper. In practice, what feels merely hot to you registers as a physical pain signal from the olfactory receptors of a rat before it has even come close to the powder. A rat doesn't learn to ignore this signal. It isn't a smell they habituate to. It is a neurochemical pain response. A study by Thongsong et al. 2010, published in a peer-reviewed journal, confirmed the repellent activity of capsaicin against rats in behavioral tests. All of this because evolution gave rats an extremely sensitive nose. Capsaicin as a rodent repellent has been studied since the 1980s in the context of grain protection. Results were published. Several agricultural operations began adopting it, but the research never received significant commercial funding. Synthetic repellents with brand names and attractive packaging took over the market. They cost $15 to $45 per bottle, lasting 2 to 3 weeks. Cayenne pepper at Walmart, $3 for 8 ounces. The difference is obvious. Thongsong et al. 2010, a peer-reviewed study published in a pest control science journal, confirmed behavioral changes in rats upon contact with capsaicin under laboratory conditions. But cayenne pepper is a repellent, not a poison. It causes rats to avoid treated areas. It does not eliminate a colony. If rats are already nesting inside your walls, pepper will push them to another part of the house rather than outside, if there are no other exits. The method is most effective as a barrier at entry points, around the foundation, around utility penetrations, in areas where rats haven't yet established nesting. In heavy rain or when wetted, the effect disappears until the surface dries. Regular reapplication is necessary. With that in mind, the supplies needed are as minimal as possible. Great value cayenne pepper, 8 ounces, $3, Walmart. Cotton balls, $2, and a cheap spray bottle, $4. I spread the powder directly along the baseboards in the basement, around incoming pipes under the sink, along the exterior perimeter of the foundation, especially where there are gaps or cracks. For hard-to-reach spots, I saturate cotton balls with a solution of 2 tablespoons of pepper to 1 cup of warm water and place them in narrow gaps. That evening, the full perimeter takes 20 minutes. I refresh the powder every 10 to 14 days and the morning after any rain. The first time I did this was around the compost bin in the backyard, where rats gathered every night. Within 4 days, it was empty. Annual cost of this method, around $25. An ultrasonic repeller at the same Home Depot costs $40 per room, and there is not a single independent study confirming its effectiveness. A rat can chew through wood, drywall, soft plastic, and most building materials. Its incisors grow continuously throughout its life, the upper ones at roughly 2.2 millimeters per week, the lower at about 2.8 millimeters, and it gnaws constantly just to keep their growth in check. Steel wool is a different case entirely. It isn't about the hardness of the material, it's about the structure. The thin, flexible strands of steel wool don't resist like a solid body. They spring back, splay apart, and tangle between the incisors. The rat cannot generate the leverage it needs. Excluder rodent control fill fabric, a steel wool-based product tested by USDA APHIS, has been field confirmed. No rodent passed through a correctly installed layer of the material during testing, all because steel strands behave like a trap, not a wall. The principle of filling gaps with metal is a well-established building practice from the 19th century. Railway depots, storerooms, provision warehouses, anywhere that required reliable rodent-proof sealing, metal packing was used. The method fell into obscurity along with that building culture. It returned in the 2000s in the form of niche products. Excluder, Stuff Fit, various steel wool brands for rodent exclusion. But most homeowners still don't know about it and pay companies thousands of dollars for exclusion service, sealing entry points that they could do themselves for $5. Professional exclusion service Sealing entry points with materials costs between $400 and $1,200 for a standard home. Some companies in the Bay Area charge $3,000 or more. A pad of medium-grade steel wool at Home Depot or Walmart costs $3 to $5, enough to seal dozens of points. The difference in price for the exact same function is where this industry lives. The EPA identifies mechanical exclusion as the most effective long-term method of rodent control. USDA APHIS has confirmed the effectiveness of excluder, and the National Pest Management Association recommends galvanized mesh with 1/4-inch openings as the optimal material. Some caveats. Ordinary steel wool rusts in damp locations and loses effectiveness, so copper mesh or excluder is preferable in those spots. And exclusion should only be carried out after activity has been reduced. Otherwise, you risk sealing rats inside. If you want to try it, use medium-grade steel wool, grade number 1 or number 2, a pad from Home Depot, $4, and an ordinary staple gun or duct tape for securing. I found every gap larger than 1/4 inch, around pipes under the sink where cables enter the wall, ventilation gaps near the foundation, gaps under the basement door. I tear off a piece of steel wool, twist it into a tight ball, and pack it into the gap so it fills at least 2 inches of depth. Otherwise, a rat can hook the edge and pull it out. For gaps larger than an inch, I layer several pieces and staple them to the frame. I check every 30 days. If I see rust or a rat has worked the edges loose, I replace it. This job takes 40 minutes one evening and $4. Exclusion service in my city starts at $600. I no longer hear sounds under the sink at 2 in the morning. Not because I spent more money, because I understood. This problem has 4 levels, and each of them costs less than one pizza. The most expensive solution is rarely the smartest one. Sometimes the right answer costs $7 and sits on a Walmart shelf next to the dish soap.